Once we hit the trigger, we're committed. Taehyun opened a final transmission broadcasting to both aliens called for help, and a Deathworlders fleet responded to their SOS for 4.7 seconds. A microscopic black hole existed in the center of the Krell swarm. It was impossibly small, impossibly dense, and impossibly destructive. The gravitational forces it generated didn't just destroy the Krell units. It tore them apart at the molecular level, ripping matter into its component atoms before consuming everything. The effect rippled outward in a sphere of annihilation. 6 million Krell units simply ceased to exist. The Indomitable was consumed instantly, along with Captain Taehyun, Commander Yuna, Chief Engineer Han, and the volunteers who had stayed behind. They died saving a civilization they had known for only 2 weeks. Then the black hole collapsed, unable to sustain itself. The laws of physics reasserted themselves. Space returned to normal. But the Krell swarm was broken. From the other human ships, the crews watched in stunned silence. The enemy formation that had covered the sensors was suddenly full of gaps. The mechanical precision of the swarm was disrupted. For the first time in the battle, the Krell seemed confused. All ships, the voice of Captain Wei came over the fleet channel. She was commander of the destroyer Relentless, now the senior officer of Fleet Terra. The captain gave us an opening. We don't waste it. All ships weapons free. For the Indomitable. For the Indomitable, the fleet echoed. The remaining 8 human ships attacked with renewed fury. The Krell tried to reform their swarm, but the coordination was gone. The central command nodes had been destroyed in the black hole's effect. Individual units fought on, but without the collective intelligence guiding them, they were vulnerable. On the planet's surface, the ground forces heard what happened. The news spread quickly. The human flagship was destroyed. The captain and his crew were dead. They had sacrificed everything to break the enemy's back. Lixna felt tears streaming down her face. She had only known these humans for a short time, but they had given everything to protect her world. Why? She asked Corporal Kim. Why did they do it? Kim looked up at the sky where the Indomitable had been. Because that's what we do. When the choice is between saving ourselves or saving others, we choose others. Every time. The Krell units on the ground suddenly became disorganized. Without coordination from the orbital forces, they fell back to basic programming. They were still dangerous but predictable. The human Marines and Valorian volunteers pushed forward, destroying the confused machines systematically. Sergeant Park rallied his unit. Keep moving. The battle isn't over until every last one of these machines is scrap metal. The ground battle turned into a cleanup operation. Small groups of Krell tried to regroup but were quickly eliminated. The defenders worked through the night, exhausted but determined. By morning, the city was clear. In orbit, the space battle continued for another 12 hours. But the outcome was no longer in doubt. The Krell swarm, once an unstoppable force, was reduced to scattered remnants. The human ships hunted them down methodically, giving no quarter. Dr. Mira worked on the destroyer Valiant, which had taken on refugees from the Indomitable's escape pods. She treated injuries and tried to comfort people who had lost friends and commanders. Everyone was grieving, but everyone kept working. That was the human way. Mourn later, survive now. When the last Krell unit was destroyed, the sensor officer made the announcement. All enemy contacts eliminated. The system is clear. There was no celebration. The fleet was too tired, too damaged, too heartsick. They had won, but the price was steep. 3 ships destroyed, over 3,000 casualties. And the Indomitable, the flagship that had led them through so many battles, was gone. Captain Wei addressed the fleet. The battle is over, we won. But victory doesn't feel good right now, and that's okay. We lost good people today, heroes. We'll remember them. We'll honor them. But first we need to help our allies rebuild. That's what the captain would want. The Valorian homeworld had survived. The cities were damaged, but the planet was intact. The population was safe. High Chancellor Thilrek stood in the command center, looking at the casualty reports from the human fleet. The numbers made his heart ache. They came to save us, he said quietly. They didn't know us. We had nothing they needed. But they came anyway. And they died for us. The Valorian military commander nodded slowly. We asked for help, and Deathworlders answered. I'm beginning to understand what that word means. Not just that they come from a dangerous world, but that they carry that danger with them, and they use it to protect others. Over the next 3 months, the humans and Valorians worked together to repair the damage. Human engineers helped rebuild Valorian cities. Valorian factories produced materials to repair human ships. The two species, so different in biology and culture, became friends forged in the fire of shared struggle. Dr. Mira spent much of this time documenting Valorian culture and history. She compiled records, took images, recorded interviews. "Your civilization is beautiful," she told Thilrex. "It deserves to be remembered and preserved. Will you stay?" the Chancellor asked hopefully. "Help us rebuild?" Mira smiled sadly. "I wish I could. But Fleet Terra has a mission. There are other people out there who might need help. We have to be ready to answer when they call." The Valorians insisted on building a memorial. It was a massive crystalline structure in the capital city's central plaza, rising 50 meters into the sky. Inside the crystal were holographic displays showing the name and face of every human who died defending Valoria. At the base was an inscription in both Valorian and human languages. "They came when we called. They fought when we couldn't. They died so we could live. We will never forget." The dedication ceremony was held on a clear day. The entire Valorian leadership attended, along with the crews of Fleet Terra. Captain Wei stood before the memorial, representing all the humans who had fought in the battle. "Captain Taehyun used to say that we exist to answer the call," she said to the assembled crowd. "When someone needs help, we help. It's that simple." He lived by that principle and he died by it. We all knew the risks when we joined Fleet Terra, but we also knew the reward. The chance to make a difference. The chance to save lives. The chance to prove that in a dangerous galaxy there are still people who care. She looked at the Valorians. "You asked for help and we answered. That's what friends do. And from this day forward, humans and Valorians are friends. We stand together. We fight together if we must. But more importantly, we build together. We create a future where fewer people need to call for help, because we're all looking out for each other." Thilrex approached the memorial and placed a wreath of Valorian flowers at its base. "We will tell our children about the humans who saved us. We will teach them that strength isn't just about weapons and shields. Strength is about character, courage, the willingness to help others even at great cost. These qualities, the humans showed us all." News of the battle spread through the galaxy. Other civilizations heard the story. Humanity, these newcomers from a death world, had defeated the Krell swarm. They had saved the Valorians through courage and sacrifice. Some civilizations reacted with fear. Humans were dangerous, they said. Too violent, too unpredictable. But other civilizations reacted with hope. If the humans could defeat the Krell, maybe the galaxy wasn't such a hopeless place. Maybe there were still heroes. The day came for Fleet Terra to depart. The ships were repaired, though the scars of battle would never fully fade. New crew members had joined to replace those who fell. The fleet was smaller but no less determined. Captain Wei stood on the bridge of the newly designated flagship, the destroyer, Relentless. Around her, the crew prepared for departure. These were faces she knew well. Some had served together for years. Others were new, fresh recruits inspired by the stories of the battle. "Captain," the communications officer said, "we're receiving a transmission. It's marked urgent. Put it through," the message played. It was from the Cerulean Coalition, a civilization 3 sectors away. They were under attack by something called the Harvester Fleet. Their defenses were failing. They were sending out a desperate plea for help. Wei looked at her crew. They were tired. They were grieving. They had just fought one of the hardest battles in human history. By all rights, they should return home to rest and recover. But the Ceruleans needed help. Someone was calling. "Helm," Wei ordered. "Set course for Cerulean space. Maximum speed." "Aye, Captain." The crew moved with practiced efficiency. No one questioned the order. No one suggested they should ignore the call. They were Fleet Terra. This was what they did. As the ships jumped to hyperspace, leaving Valorian space behind, Dr. Mira recorded a final note in her log. "Today we leave Valoria. The people here are safe now. They'll rebuild, they'll thrive, and they'll remember. But somewhere else, someone needs help. So we go, we answer the call. Because that's what humans do. We don't turn away. We don't say it's not our problem. We show up, we fight. We save who we can." She paused, thinking about Captain Taehyun and all those who died. "The captain once told me that being human means standing up when others can't. It means fighting when the odds are impossible. It means caring about people you've never met. Today I understand what he meant. We're not aliens called for help, and a Deathworlders fleet responded to their SOS. The Krell swarm entered the outer orbital zone like a living darkness, blotting out the stars. 23 million units moved in perfect coordination, their machine minds calculating the quickest path to consume the Valorian homeworld. They detected the small human fleet and dismissed it as irrelevant. These primitive ships would be destroyed in minutes. They advanced confidently into the trap. The nuclear mines detonated first, hidden among the orbital debris. The explosions weren't designed to destroy. Instead, they released massive electromagnetic pulses that rippled through space. Thousands of Krell units went dark as their systems overloaded. They floated helplessly, temporarily disabled. "Now," Commander Yuna ordered. The kinetic weapon platforms opened fire. These were simple devices, just magnetic accelerators and targeting computers. But simple didn't mean ineffective. They launched tungsten rods the size of telephone poles at 5% of light speed. The projectiles were invisible until they hit. When they struck, the results were devastating. Krell units exploded as the kinetic energy ripped through their adaptive armor. The armor had been designed to deflect energy beams and disperse plasma. It couldn't stop solid matter traveling at relativistic speeds. Physics didn't care about adaptation. The Krell swarm reacted immediately, breaking formation and attempting to locate the weapon platforms. But Han's chaff clouds created ghost images on their sensors. They wasted precious seconds and ammunition firing at debris and false targets. Fleet Terra launched forward from their position near the planet. 9 human warships against millions of enemy units. The odds were absurd, but the humans didn't care about odds. "Execute Protocol Ragnarok," Captain Taehyun commanded. "All ships, maximum power. We hold this line." The human ships formed a defensive sphere, creating overlapping fields of fire. Their fusion reactors ran at 120% capacity, far beyond safe limits. The engineers knew this would destroy the engines after the battle, but there wouldn't be an after if they lost. The Indomitable's weapons blazed continuously. Railguns fired so fast the barrels glowed red-hot. Missile pods emptied in seconds, then reloaded and fired again. Mass drivers hurled projectile after projectile into the approaching swarm. Han worked frantically in engineering, rerouting power from damaged systems to keep the weapons firing. "Portside gravity projectors overheating," he reported. "I'm compensating with the starboard array." "How long can we maintain this?" Taehyun asked. "Honestly, Captain, I have no idea. We're in territory the designers never imagined, but I'll keep these systems running until they literally explode." On the bridge, Yuna coordinated the entire fleet's movements. Her fingers danced across multiple displays simultaneously, calculating firing solutions, adjusting formations, predicting enemy movements. She had a gift for seeing the battle as a whole, understanding the flow of combat like a chess master sees the board. "Cruiser Defiant is taking heavy fire," she reported, recommending they fall back to second position. "Approved," Taehyun said. "Destroyer Relentless move up to cover the gap." The battle was chaos, but within the chaos was order. The human ships moved like dancers, each one knowing exactly where the others were, covering weaknesses and reinforcing strengths. They had trained together for years, fought together, bled together. They were more than a fleet. They were family. Krell units broke through the defensive sphere and headed for the planet. The Valorian volunteers on the surface saw them coming. Dark shapes descending through the atmosphere like meteors. Lixina stood at one of the ground defense positions, her 6 legs trembling as she watched the enemy approach. Around her, other Valorians waited with weapons they barely knew how to use. They were scientists and artists, not warriors, but they were willing to defend their home. Beside them stood human Marines in powered armor. Corporal Kim checked her weapon and spoke calmly into her helmet radio. "Remember your training. Let them come to the prepared positions. Don't panic. Don't run. We fight together." The first Krell landed and the ground battle began. The machines were efficient killers, equipped with cutting lasers and plasma weapons. They advanced in perfect formation, expecting the defenders to break and flee. Instead, the defenders sprang the trap. The buildings around the landing zone, which looked damaged and abandoned, were actually rigged with explosives. When the Krell concentrated their forces, the charges detonated. Entire structures collapsed on the machines, crushing hundreds under tons of rubble. "Now move to position 2, Kim ordered. The defenders retreated in good order, leading the Krell toward the next prepared killing ground. Lixna fired her weapon at the pursuing machines. her aim shaky but determined. A Krell unit turned toward her, its weapon charging. Before it could fire, a human Marine appeared from cover and tackled the machine, driving a vibro blade through its central processor. The Marine's name was Sergeant Park. He pulled the blade free and nodded at Lixina. "You're doing good," he said. "Keep moving." The ground battle became a deadly game of cat and mouse. The humans and Valorians didn't try to fight the Krell in open combat. Instead, they used the city itself as a weapon. Ambushes in narrow streets, traps in buildings, sniper positions on rooftops. Every time the Krell thought they had the defenders cornered, the defenders disappeared and struck from a new direction. In orbit, the battle was reaching a critical point. Fleet Terra had destroyed thousands of Krell units, but millions more kept coming. The human ships were taking severe damage, hull breaches, failed systems, casualties mounting. The cruiser Defiant lost its main engines and started to drift. The destroyer Valiant took a direct hit to the bridge, killing half the command crew. The Indomitable's armor was stripped away on the port side, exposing internal corridors to vacuum. But the humans kept fighting. Damage control teams sealed breaches while under fire. Injured crew members refused medical treatment and stayed at their posts. When one weapon system failed, they switched to another. When ammunition ran low, they rationed every shot. Dr. Mira worked in the medical bay, treating the wounded as they came in. Her staff was overwhelmed, but they worked with practiced efficiency. A young ensign was brought in with severe burns. As Mira treated him, he tried to stand up. "I need to get back to my station," he said through gritted teeth. "You need to stay here and heal," Mira said firmly. "But the ship needs me." Mira understood. That was the human way. Never quit. Never give up. Fight until you couldn't fight anymore, then fight some more. But she also knew when to draw the line. "The ship needs you alive," she said. "Rest now. When you heal, there will be more battles to fight." On the bridge, Tae-hyun watched the tactical display with growing concern. They were winning, slowly grinding down the Krell numbers. But the cost was too high. At this rate, Fleet Terra would be destroyed before the swarm was defeated. "We need to change tactics," he said to Yuna. "We're fighting their battle, not ours." Yuna nodded, already thinking 3 steps ahead. "We need a knockout blow. Something that will break their formation and destroy large numbers simultaneously." Han's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, I have an idea. It's completely insane and probably suicidal, but it might work." "I'm listening," Tae-hyun said. "The gravity weapon," Han explained. "We've been using it at low power for tactical purposes. But if we overload it, feed it all the power from our fusion core, we could create an artificial black hole. Just for a few seconds, but enough to tear apart everything nearby." "Including the Indomitable," Yuna said quietly. "Yes," Han admitted. "The ship would be destroyed. But we could position it in the center of the Krell formation first. Take out millions of them in one strike." Tae-hyun looked around the bridge. His crew had served with him for years. Many had families waiting back home. This wasn't a decision to make lightly. "How long would it take to prepare?" he asked. 30 minutes to charge the weapon. The crew would need to evacuate during that time. Tae-hyun made his decision. "Do it, prepare the weapon. All hands begin evacuation procedures. This is not a request. Everyone off the ship except essential personnel." The crew protested, but Tae-hyun was firm. Escape pods launched from the Indomitable, carrying the crew to other ships. Mira and her medical team were among the last to leave, making sure all wounded were evacuated first. Soon, only a skeleton crew remained. Tae-hyun in command, Han in engineering, nursing the overloading gravity weapon, a handful of volunteers at critical stations, and Yuna. She had refused to leave, ignoring Tae-hyun's direct orders. "I'm not letting you do this alone," she said simply. Tae-hyun wanted to argue, but he knew it was useless. Yuna was just as stubborn as he was. "Fine, but when we get to the afterlife, I'm putting you on report for insubordination." She smiled. "I'll look forward to it, Captain." The Indomitable changed course, accelerating directly toward the densest part of the Krell swarm. The other human ships moved to cover its approach, drawing enemy fire and creating a corridor. In engineering, Han watched the power levels climb. The gravity weapon was never designed for this. Every system was screaming warnings. The fusion core was burning itself out. But the weapon was charging. 5 minutes to detonation, he reported calmly. "There's no abort at this point." "Because we're going to teach the Krell something they've never. Aliens called for help." and a Deathworlders fleet responded to their SOS. The repair work began immediately after the battle. Human and Valorian engineers worked side by side in orbit around the Valorian homeworld. 3 human ships floated in various states of damage, their hulls torn open by Krell weapons. But instead of abandoning them, the crews swarmed over every surface, cutting away destroyed sections and welding new plates into place. Chief Engineer Han Seo floated in vacuum outside the damaged cruiser Defiant, directing his team with hand signals and radio commands. His magnetic boots locked him to the hull as sparks flew from welding torches all around him. "No, no, no," he said into his radio. "That plate goes there, not there. We need to maintain the structural integrity or the whole section will collapse during the next battle." A Valorian engineer named Kixtal worked nearby, watching the humans with fascination. His species had advanced repair drones that could fix damage automatically, but the humans did everything manually, with their own hands and simple tools. It seemed inefficient, yet somehow they worked faster than Valorian drones ever could. "Why don't you use automated systems?" Kixtal asked Han during a break. Han pulled himself over to the alien and opened his faceplate so they could see each other. "Machines are useful, but they can't think. If something unexpected happens, they fail. A human can adapt," he grinned. "Besides, I trust my hands more than any computer." Kixtal's antennae wiggled, which meant he was thinking hard. "Your species is very strange. You use old technology, but you use it in new ways. That's the human way," Han agreed. "Work with what you have. Make it better. Never stop improving." Down on the planet's surface, Dr. Mira Choi walked through the Valorian capital city with High Chancellor Thilrex. The city was beautiful, with crystalline towers that caught the light and gardens filled with alien flowers. But beneath the beauty, Mira could see the fear. Valorian citizens watched the sky constantly, knowing the Krell would return. "Your people have built something wonderful here," Mira said. "A peaceful civilization focused on art and science and philosophy. It's worth protecting." Thilrex's mandibles clicked softly. "I fear our peace made us weak. When the Krell came, we had forgotten how to fight. We thought the galaxy was a safe place." Mira stopped walking and turned to face the Chancellor. "Peace isn't weakness. What you've built here is precious. But sometimes, to preserve peace, you need people willing to fight for it. That's why we're here." "But why?" Thilrex asked, genuine confusion in his voice. "You didn't know us. We have nothing you need. Why did humans come to help strangers?" Mira was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "Because we know what it's like to face extinction. We've been there. When you're desperate and alone and the end is coming, you pray someone will answer. You did, so we came." She looked up at the sky where Fleet Terra was stationed. Captain Taehyun lost his family in a raid. He couldn't save them because he was too far away. Now he makes sure no one else has to feel that way. Commander Yuna grew up on a colony that was attacked when she was a child. She learned that sometimes the only way to protect peace is to be ready for war. Chief Han lost his brother to raiders. Every member of Fleet Terra has a reason to be here. We understand loss, and we fight to prevent it. Thilrex felt his respect for these humans grow even deeper. They carried pain, but instead of letting it break them, they used it as strength to help others. Aboard the Indomitable, Commander Yuna stood in the war room with the Valorian military commander, planning the defense of the homeworld. Holographic displays showed the planet, the orbital space, and predicted approach vectors for the Krell main swarm. "The Krell will arrive in 6 days," Yuna said, marking positions on the display. "They'll come from multiple directions to prevent us from concentrating our forces. Standard swarm doctrine." The Valorian commander studied the display. "Our remaining ships are too damaged to fight effectively. We have perhaps 20 vessels that can still fire weapons." "Then we don't use them as warships," Yuna said. "We use them as weapon platforms. Strip out everything unnecessary. Power shields, life support. Turn them into automated gun batteries we can position wherever we need them." "That seems wasteful." Yuna shook her head. "It's practical. Ships are just tools. The goal is to win, not to preserve equipment." She zoomed in on the planet's surface. "We'll also need ground defenses. The Krell will try to land forces on the planet. We need to be ready. But ground combat against machines?" The Valorian commander's antennae drooped. "We are not warriors. We are scientists and philosophers." "Then we'll teach you," Yuna said firmly. "Not how to be soldiers, but how to survive. How to protect your people. You don't need to be warriors. You just need to be willing to stand and fight when the moment comes." Over the next 5 days, the Valorian homeworld transformed. Human engineers installed kinetic weapon platforms in orbit, using materials from asteroid mining operations. They showed the Valorians how to build simple but effective defenses. Han taught the Valorian engineers how to create chaff clouds, fields of debris that would confuse Krell sensors and targeting systems. It doesn't have to be fancy, he explained while demonstrating. Just metal fragments, ice crystals, anything that reflects signals. Make them waste ammunition shooting at ghosts. On the planet's surface, human Marines worked with Valorian volunteers. The Marines were smaller than the Valorians but wore powered armor that made them incredibly strong. They taught basic defensive tactics. A young Valorian named Lixna watched in amazement as a human Marine named Corporal Kim demonstrated how to set up an ambush. You don't fight them head-on if you can avoid it, Kim explained. You hit them where they're weak. You make them come to you on ground you've prepared. You use the environment as a weapon. But that's sneaky, Lixna said. It's not honorable. Kim looked at the young Valorian seriously. Honor's important. But you know what's more important? Living, protecting your family, surviving to see tomorrow. The Krell don't care about honor. They just want to consume everything. So we fight smart, not fair. Captain Tae-hyun spent his time coordinating all the defensive preparations. He barely slept, working around the clock to ensure everything was ready. Mira found him in his office late one night studying tactical reports. You should rest, she said gently. Tae-hyun looked up, his eyes red from fatigue. I'll rest when this is over. The main swarm arrives tomorrow. We need to be ready. We are ready, Mira assured him. You've done everything possible. He pulled out the photograph of his wife and daughter, looking at it for a long moment. I couldn't save them. But maybe I can save the Valorians. Maybe that means something. Mira sat down across from him. It means everything. You're giving these people a chance to live. That's what heroes do. I'm not a hero, Tae-hyun said quietly. I'm just a man who shows up when people need help. That's exactly what a hero is, Mira replied. The next morning, the long-range sensors detected it. The Krell main swarm had arrived at the edge of the system. The readings were terrifying. 23 million units, enough to darken the stars, enough to consume entire worlds. The news spread through Fleet Terra and the Valorian defenses. Some of the Valorian volunteers looked ready to give up. The odds were impossible. The enemy was too strong. There was no way to win, but the humans didn't flinch. On every ship in every defensive position, they prepared for battle with calm determination. They had seen impossible odds before. They had faced extinction and survived. This was just another fight. Tae-hyun stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the approaching swarm on the main display. His crew worked efficiently around him, checking weapon systems and running final diagnostics. All ships report ready, Yuna reported. Orbital defenses online. Ground forces in position. The trap is set. Good, Tae-hyun said. He opened a fleet-wide channel. This is Captain Tae-hyun to all human forces. The enemy is here. They outnumber us 1,000 to 1. They think we're going to run. They think we're going to surrender. They're wrong. He paused, letting his words sink in. We're humans. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day for 3 million years. We learned to fight back. We learned to survive. We learned that numbers don't matter when you refuse to quit. Today we show the Krell what Deathworlders can do. Today we show them that some people don't break. Today we fight, the crew of the Indomitable shouted in agreement. Across Fleet Terra, on every ship and every defensive position, humans prepared for the battle of their lives. The Krell swarm advanced like a wave of metal and death. Confident in their superiority and inevitable victory, they had consumed hundreds of civilizations. They had never been defeated. These few ships and the peaceful aliens they protected would be easy prey. They didn't understand what they were about to face. They didn't know about Earth, about Deathworlders, about the stubborn species that refused to accept defeat. They were about to learn. Aliens called for help, and a Deathworlders fleet responded to their SOS. The meeting room aboard the Indomitable was designed for human comfort, but the Valorian representatives who visited looked uncomfortable. Their 6 legs clicked nervously on the metal floor as they entered. High Chancellor Thilrex led the delegation, accompanied by his military commander and chief scientist. Dr. Mira greeted them with a warm smile and offered them specially prepared seats. She had spent the last few hours learning about Valorian biology and customs. Welcome aboard, Chancellor. We're honored to meet you. Thilrex bobbed his head, which his species used as a greeting. Thank you, Dr. Choi. Your hospitality is appreciated. Though I must confess, we are confused about many things. Please ask anything, Mira said. The Valorian scientist spoke up, his translator rendering his clicks and chirps into human language. Our sensors show your ships are built from iron-based alloys and titanium. These materials are considered primitive. Your power source appears to be fusion reactors, which we abandoned 300 years ago. Yet you claim you can fight the Krell? Commander Yuna, who sat across the table, didn't seem offended by the question. Our technology is different from yours. Not necessarily better or worse, just different. We focus on reliability and durability over sophistication. But the Krell have adaptive armor, the Valorian military commander insisted. They learned to resist energy weapons within hours. Our plasma cannons were useless after the first battle. How can your primitive weapons succeed where ours failed? Hanseo leaned back in his chair and grinned. You're asking the wrong question. You're thinking about what can hurt them. We're thinking about how to break them. Captain Tae-hyun activated a holographic display showing human weapons. We don't rely only on energy weapons. Most of our arsenal is kinetic. Railguns, mass drivers, explosive projectiles, simple physics traveling very, very fast. The Valorians looked at each other in confusion. But kinetic weapons are ancient technology, Thilrex said. Throwing rocks at advanced machines? Not rocks, Yuna corrected. Tungsten penetrators moving at 5% of light speed. Explosive-tipped missiles. Cluster munitions. The Krell might adapt to energy, but they can't adapt to having a telephone pole punch through their hull at relativistic speeds. Mira noticed the Valorians still seemed doubtful. She pulled up another display. Let me show you something. This is Earth, our home world. The planet appeared on the screen, blue and green and white. It looked beautiful. Then Mira changed the display to show Earth's danger rating according to the galactic classification system humans had developed. Class 12 Death World, she explained. The highest danger category. Earth has extreme weather that can level cities. Volcanic eruptions that block out the sun for years. Earthquakes that crack continents. Ice ages that cover half the planet in glaciers. And that's just the geology. She pulled up images of Earth's wildlife. Almost everything on our planet evolved to survive in this environment. We have predators that hunt in packs with complex strategies. We have prey animals that can run for hours without stopping. We have plants that are toxic to touch. Insects that inject venom. Microorganisms that cause deadly diseases. The Valorians watched in growing horror as Mira showed them videos of Earth's creatures. Lions hunting. Sharks circling. Snakes striking. Bears standing twice the height of a human. How did you survive? The Valorian scientist whispered. We adapted, Tae-hyun said quietly. We learned to make tools. We learned to work together. We learned to be stubborn. When Earth tried to freeze us, we made fire. When predators hunted us, we hunted them back. When diseases struck us down, we studied them and developed medicine. We survived because giving up was never an option. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. Earth tried to kill humanity for 3 million years. We're still here. The Krell swarm might be advanced machines, but they're just another predator. And we know how to deal with predators. The Valorian military commander's antennae twitched. You said you have fought wars of extinction before. What did you mean? The room fell silent. Yuna and Han exchanged glances. Mira looked down at her hands. Tae-hyun turned back to face the Valorians. We've met other species before, he said. Not all of them were friendly. 30 years ago, our colonies were attacked by raiders. They killed millions of humans before we could mount a defense. We lost entire worlds, his voice hardened. But we learned. We built Fleet Terra as a rapid response force. We made a promise. Never again would we arrive too late to help. That's why we're here, Yuna added. When we heard your distress call, we didn't hesitate. We didn't calculate the odds. We just came. Thilrex felt something shift in his understanding of these strange creatures. They looked soft and weak, but they possessed something the Valorians had lost. Hope, determination, the absolute refusal to accept defeat. What do you need from us? The Chancellor asked. Everything you know about the Krell, Tae-hyun said. Their tactics, their technology, their patterns. We'll use it to prepare. The briefing lasted 3 hours. The Valorians shared all their data about the Krell swarm. Battle recordings, technical scans, tactical analysis. The humans absorbed it all. asking sharp questions that showed they understood warfare in ways the peaceful Valorians never had. As the meeting ended, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. The Valorian military commander received an urgent message on his communicator. His body went rigid. "The Krell," he said, his voice shaking. "They're here." A vanguard force just entered the system. 50,000 units. The humans moved instantly. Tae-hyun strode to the bridge with Yuna right behind him. Han ran to engineering. Mira escorted the Valorians to a safe area. There was no panic, no confusion. Just practiced efficiency. On the bridge, Tae-hyun slid into the captain's chair. The main screen showed the Krell swarm approaching. They looked like a cloud of metal locusts, each one the size of a small cruiser. The Valorian defense satellites fired desperately but were destroyed within minutes. "Fleet status," Tae-hyun ordered. "All ships ready for combat," the tactical officer reported. "Weapons charged. Armor plates secured. Crews at battle stations." Yuna pulled up the tactical display. The Krell are moving in a standard swarm formation. "They're heading directly for the planet. They think we're going to defend from orbit," Tae-hyun said. "They expect us to be stationary targets." "Then let's surprise them," Yuna said with a cold smile. "Recommend protocol hammer, sir." Tae-hyun nodded. "All ships, this is the captain. Execute protocol hammer. Full speed ahead. Target the center of their formation. Weapons free." The Valorians watching from their orbital command station couldn't believe what they were seeing. The human fleet wasn't taking defensive positions. They were accelerating directly toward the Krell swarm. "It looked like suicide. What are they doing?" Thilrex asked desperately. "They'll be surrounded and destroyed." But the humans knew exactly what they were doing. Fleet Terra had fought swarm tactics before. The key was to never let the enemy surround you. Instead, you punched through their formation so fast they couldn't react. The Indomitable led the charge with the other 11 human ships in tight formation behind it. They accelerated to maximum speed, their fusion engines burning bright. "Range in 30 seconds, Yuna announced. 20 seconds. 10 seconds, contact. Fire everything, Tae-hyun ordered. The human ships opened fire simultaneously. Railguns hurled solid projectiles at incredible speeds. Missile pods launched thousands of warheads. Mass drivers flung tungsten slugs like invisible hammers. The weapons were crude compared to energy weapons, but their impact was devastating. The Krell swarm's adaptive armor had been designed to disperse energy and deflect plasma. It had no defense against pure kinetic force. The first wave of railgun rounds punched through Krell units like paper. Explosions bloomed throughout the enemy formation as missiles found their targets. Han's experimental gravity weapons activated, creating localized gravitational wells. Krell units were pulled off course, smashing into each other. Their attempts to surround the human fleet failed as they were dragged into overlapping fields of fire. "Reloading," Han reported from engineering. "Gravity projectors at 70% power. We can maintain this for another 5 minutes." 5 minutes was all they needed. Fleet Terra carved through the Krell vanguard like a sword through cloth. The humans didn't rely on shields or deflectors. When Krell weapons hit their ships, thick armor plating absorbed the damage. Hull breaches were sealed by emergency crews working in vacuum. Damaged sections were isolated and bypassed. The Valorians watched in stunned silence as these supposedly primitive humans destroyed the Krell vanguard. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't sophisticated. It was brutal, efficient, and absolutely effective. When the battle ended 2 hours later, 49,000 Krell units were destroyed. Fleet Terra had lost 3 ships, but the remaining 9 were still combat-capable. Tae-hyun opened a channel to the Valorian command station. His face appeared on their screens, showing burns on one cheek and blood on his uniform. "Chancellor, the Vanguard is eliminated, but this was just a scouting force. The main swarm will arrive in 6 days. We need to prepare." Thilrex looked at the human captain with new eyes. "What do you need?" "Everything," Tae-hyun said. Aliens called for help, and a Deathworlders fleet responded to their SOS. The distress signal traveled across the dark void of space, carrying with it the final hope of a dying civilization. High Chancellor Thilrex stood in the central command chamber of the Valorian homeworld, his 6 legs trembling as he watched another colony fall on the display screens. The insectoid leader had ruled his people for 30 cycles, but he had never imagined he would witness their extinction. "Send it again," he ordered, his voice breaking. "Broadcast on all frequencies. Someone must hear us." The message was simple. The Valorian Empire needed help. They offered anything they had left in exchange for salvation. Their 12-star systems were falling one by one to an enemy they could not defeat. The Krell swarm consumed everything in its path, turning living worlds into dead rocks stripped of all resources. 3 days passed with no response. The Valorians watched helplessly as the machine swarm moved closer to their homeworld. Their military fleet was destroyed. Their weapons were useless. The Krell adapted to every attack, learned from every battle, and came back stronger each time. Then, on the 4th day, a response arrived. The communication officer's antennae perked up in surprise as the translation program decoded the message. It was in perfect Valorian language, though the accent was strange. "We received your distress call. Hold your position. Fleet Terra is on the way. We will arrive in 14 cycles." Thilrex felt a spark of hope ignite in his chest. "Terra, search our databases." "Who are they?" The search came back empty. No civilization called Terra existed in their records. No trade agreements, no diplomatic contacts, nothing. These people were completely unknown to the Valorian Empire. "Where are they coming from?" Thilrex asked. The officer checked the signal origin. "From the Outer Rim, Chancellor. A region we have never explored. The sector is marked as unstable and dangerous in our navigation charts. 14 cycles. The Valorians had that long to prepare, to hope, and to wonder who these mysterious Terrans were, and why they would help strangers." Far across the galaxy, aboard the human warship Indomitable, Captain Tae-hyun studied the distress call for the 5th time. The bridge crew worked quietly around him, preparing the ship for combat. Tae-hyun was 42 years old, with gray streaks in his dark hair and scars on his hands from years of service. His face showed the hard lines of someone who had seen too much war. "Thoughts?" he asked his second-in-command. Commander Yuna stood beside him, her arms crossed as she examined the tactical data. She was younger than Tae-hyun by 10 years, but had already earned a reputation as one of humanity's best strategic minds. "The Krell swarm. I've read about them in the old encounter logs. They wiped out the Talvarian civilization about 50 years ago. Can we beat them?" Yuna's expression didn't change. "Unknown. But these Valorians sound desperate. If we don't try, they're dead for certain." Tae-hyun nodded slowly. He pulled a small photograph from his pocket and looked at it. The image showed a woman and a young girl, both smiling. His wife and daughter. They had died 15 years ago, when raiders attacked their colony world. He had been away on patrol duty. By the time he returned, there was nothing left to save. He put the photo away and straightened his uniform. "Tell the fleet to prepare for combat operations. We leave in 2 hours." The ship's intercom crackled to life. "All hands, this is the captain. We have received a distress call from an alien civilization called the Valorians. They are under attack and facing extinction. Fleet Terra will respond to their call for help. This is what we trained for. This is why we exist. Battle stations in 2 hours." In the engineering section, Chief Engineer Han Seo looked up from his work. He was a broad-shouldered man with oil stains on his uniform and a constant expression of intense concentration. Around him, massive machines hummed with power. These were the gravity weapons. Experimental technology that humanity had developed through decades of trial and error. "You hear that?" Han called to his team. "We're going into a real fight. I want every system checked 3 times. No failures, no excuses." His assistant, a young engineer named Day, looked nervous. "Chief, the gravity weapons are still experimental. We've never used them in actual combat." Han grinned. "Then this will be a good test. Get to work." In the medical bay, Dr. Mira Choi prepared her equipment. She was the ship's xenobiologist and the person responsible for first contact situations. Mira was 35, with sharp eyes that missed nothing, and a calm demeanor that put everyone at ease. She had joined Fleet Terra because she believed in humanity's mission to explore and help others. "We're going to meet a new species," she said to her medical staff. "These Valorians are insectoid according to the data we received. Their biology will be completely different from ours. Be ready for anything." Fleet Terra consisted of 12 warships. They were not the largest ships humanity had built, but they were tough and heavily armed. Each ship carried scars from previous battles. Patched hull plates, replaced armor sections, and hastily welded repairs told the story of a fleet that had fought hard and survived. The ships jumped into hyperspace together, leaving human territory behind. They traveled through the dangerous Outer Rim, a region of space filled with gravity wells, radiation storms, and uncharted hazards. But the human crews had experience navigating dangerous places. After all, they came from Earth, a planet that had tried to kill humanity for millions of years. 12 days later, Fleet Terra arrived at the edge of the Valorian system. The crew of the Indomitable stared at their sensor displays in shock. "Captain," the sensor officer reported, "I'm reading massive debris fields throughout the system. These were cities, orbital stations. There must have been millions of people living here." Taehyun's jaw tightened. "And now? All destroyed, sir. The Krell have already consumed 7 of the 12 Valorian worlds." Yuna pulled up the tactical display. "The homeworld is still intact. That's where the distress signal came from. I'm detecting Valorian ships in orbit, but they're badly damaged." "Open a channel," Taehyun ordered. The view screen flickered, and for the first time, humans and Valorians saw each other. The Valorian High Chancellor appeared on screen, his insectoid features frozen in surprise. To Thilrex, the humans looked impossibly fragile. They had soft skin, only 2 legs, and no natural armor or weapons. "I am Captain Taehyun of the human vessel Indomitable," Taehyun said clearly. "We received your distress call. We're here to help." Thilrex struggled to find words. These creatures looked so weak. Their ships appeared small and primitive on his sensors. Their technology seemed centuries behind Valorian standards. "Captain, we are grateful for your response, but are you certain you can help us? The Krell swarm has destroyed civilizations far more advanced than my own." Taehyun's expression remained calm. "We understand your concern, Chancellor. We may not have the most advanced technology in the galaxy, but we have something else. We have experience fighting wars of extinction. And we're still here. That counts for something." Yuna stepped forward. "Tell us about your enemy. Everything you know." As the Valorians explained the nature of the Krell swarm, the human crew listened carefully. Millions of machine warriors, self-replicating factories, adaptive armor that learned to resist weapons, energy shields that could deflect plasma fire. An enemy that had been unstoppable for thousands of years. When the briefing ended, Thilrex asked quietly, "Can you truly fight such an enemy?" Taehyun looked at his crew. Han was grinning confidently. Mira was taking notes calmly. Yuna was already calculating tactics. These were humans. These were Deathworlders. They had survived the worst planet in the galaxy and spread to the stars through sheer determination. "Chancellor," Taehyun said, "we didn't come here to run away. We came here to win. Now show us where the enemy is."